Hey there, so welcome back. Right, just a little taster about what we've got going here. We're going to be having a really big challenge at the end about how to make Ripley work, which throughout this tutorial and the previous ones you'll have got all the skills you need to make Ripley this sort of enemy that comes towards you and can be shot. Now what we're going to do is we're going to end it with a game where we can fly around, we can shoot lasers like this, and we can even hit the ball and pop the ball and then make it come back again. Okay, projectiles. What is a projectile? Let's have a quick look together. Here's something I prepared. What is a projectile? You've seen projectiles if you've been playing video games. You might have seen them as arrows. You might have seen them as laser beams. All these are projectiles because your character projects them away from them. Fireballs are another example. A wizard fires a fireball. That's a projectile. Boomerangs, and then balls of all sorts of types. All these are projectiles. The one we're going to work with is a laser beam. But the first thing we need to do is to get our old project back. So let's go into scratch.mit.edu. Now we're in there, we need to go on to get started or create starting. Let that load up. The tutorial will come, so we need to get rid of that because we don't want it. File, load from your computer. Go to where you saved last time, so here's mine, double click, it should load up, and then we can get started. Now, what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to delete this extra ball because if I make any change to the ball, I don't want to have to do it to every single one like last time. I can then just duplicate this ball, so I've got a second, third, fourth, right? So we're just making our life a little bit easier in the future. Right, so now we know what a projectile is, let's go on to making our projectile. First we're going to need to get a new sprite. Okay, so we're going to look in there. You can pick whatever you want, it really doesn't matter. You can have a ballerina, you can have whatever you want, but I feel that I quite like the idea of using a shark as my projectile. Now you can see it's a little too big, so we want him to be smaller than the rocket ship, because obviously the rocket ship is going to shoot the shark out into space to try and hit any enemies. So what we do is, remember our OOP, our object orientated design, yeah, remember? We need to make sure that we're working with the shark, and we know we're working with the shark because it's got this blue outline. Let's change his size from 100, I'm going to go with 30. You can pick whatever size you want, but you can see this makes him much smaller. He looks kind of like he might have been able to be fired out by our rocket ship. Now we've got that, I actually think I'm going to make the rocket ship a little bit smaller. Remember OOP, our object oriented programming, we need to go back into rocket ship. We've got a size at 70, but I think I'm going to change it to 60. Alright, now you can play with this as you want. The reason I'm thinking about this is because if I have quite a few balls on, I do want my rocket to be small enough that I can get in between them and shoot them. Right, back onto the shark. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to create a movement script. He is our projectile, he's the thing we're firing. So let's have a look. When flag is clicked, so when we start, that looks good. And something else we know is to move. We know this isn't going to work because when we press the flag, it's just going to move once. That's no good. So we need that forever loop again, which is in control, forever move 10 steps. Right, so let's have a look. I'm moving back, we press play, and we see he flies across, just like a laser. Maybe 10 is too slow, that's okay. Let's grab his tail. So can you see just there, he's not gone off the screen, he's just fitting in. Going to drag him back, and then instead of having 10, why don't we have 15? A little bit quicker. Let's see how quick he flies now. Yeah, that's looking good. Again, if you go to the corner of the screen, you can just see his tail and you can drag him back. If you can't find him, what you can do is go to your X coordinate at the bottom. Type in something like 0, press enter, and you'll pull him back. Alright, and you can see him again. Now, this is looking alright, but that's only one projectile, which isn't great. So what we can do is, if we go into events, we can have a look for something called clone. Let's have a look. Not in events, sorry, down in control. So go down to the bottom of control, it says, when I start as clone, I want to forever move 15 steps. In other words, when we create him, he's going to fire off 15 steps each time. Now we can get rid of when click, because obviously we don't want that anymore. What we need to do though is actually create the clone. In programming they call it instantiating. It's a very posh word, but it just means to create the clone. So if we go, well, we need to think first, what do we want to create the clone? And we want that to be our rocket ship. So we want our rocket ship to create our clones for us. So if we go into our script, we need to think about what do we want to happen, what event do we want to happen that means a clone is created. We don't want a clone to create when we click start, because that would just mean there's always clones firing off, and that's not what we want. We want us, the player, to be able to create our projectile. So what we'll do is we'll go into events and we'll find this one which we've used before, when space key is pressed. So when we press the space key, something's going to happen. We could have space key, we could have any key you wanted. In fact, you could literally have any key. But I think spacebar is probably quite a good key to have. When we've done that, we need to decide what we want our spacebar to do. Well, we know that we want the spacebar to clone our shark. So let's go down to where we've got create clone. Now we don't want to create a clone of the rocket ship, otherwise we'll have 30 rocket ships flying around. That's no good. What we want to do when we attach it is create a clone of the shark. So now we should run play, and every time we press spacebar we're going to fire a shark off. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. The problem we've got is the shark is only firing from one space. If I move the ship down, it's still firing, and if I move it up, it's still firing, which means these balls can hit us and we're not actually defending ourselves. So what we need to do is, rather than just firing it from the middle of nowhere, we need to fire it from where the spaceship is. First let's go to our shark, because it seems a bit weird that he's just stuck there in the middle of space. So what we're going to do is we're going to hide him. But this isn't great, because when we start firing we actually can't see him anymore because, well, we hid him. So we can change this in programming. What we're going to do is go to the looks and then down to show. We're going to put this outside the forever loop. We could put it inside, but it seems pointless. What would the point be if I could separate these scripts? What's the point in forever showing it? Once you've shown it, you've shown it. So what we're going to do is put it outside. In other words, we're going to call show once, but forever show, or call, steps. Okay? When I say call, it just means like what your mum and dad might do, or a teacher in a playground. They call you over. So you're calling show once, and then you're going to forever call move 15 steps. Let's try it now. No shark, but when I press space, you can see it. I can fire loads of them. So, what we want to do now is, rather than firing them randomly from this middle section, what we're going to do is fire them from where the rocket ship is. So first off, let's go into the rocket ship script. We know we've got our press space here. What I want to do is just show you a really cool little feature. If you go to motion and then down, you can find X position, Y position. Put that in, just give it a tick, and you'll see that on your game screen they appear. These are really interesting. When I play the game, I can find, I'm just going to go to my ball and I'm just going to take out this bang because it's a bit annoying, and I'm going to leave it there. I'm not deleting it, I can add it in back later, but I'm just going to remove it because I think the sound effects aren't necessary whilst I'm testing. These coordinates are really interesting. When I press play, you can see that as I move the rocket ship up and down, there's a new number appearing in here, which is really, really useful. We want this number. We want it because we want the shark to appear at that exact point. So for example, when I press space, I want the shark to appear at -49 on the Y. If I move it up and I press space again, I want it to appear at 61. In other words, we're getting a reading from our computer. We want to use that reading. So let's have a look at that and how we can do it. We need to go back to our variables. Why? Well, you can see the Y position is varying. So it's a variable because it's varying. So let's make a variable that can read the Y position. So click make a variable, and we're going to call it get rocket ship Y because we want that coordinate. In fact, whilst we're there, let's make another variable and call get rocket ship X. Remember those X and Y coordinates we talked about before? So now we've got those variables, what we're going to do, first off we're going to hide them. Actually, let's not hide them. Let's keep them, and then we can see if they're working before we hide them. Hiding is really what you do when you want to tidy things up. When you're programming, it's okay to be messy. You only tidy up when you want someone to play it. So, now we're back into our rocket script, and we're looking at getting those coordinates. So, let's go into our control. Oh, actually, no. What we want to do is set the variable. So take the variable out, set current score. That isn't right. We don't want the current score. But what we do want is the X of the rocket ship, and we want another one that gets the Y of the rocket ship. You can clip them together if you want, but just make sure you've got X and Y. Otherwise you're going to be recording the same variable. Go back to motion, and those very things that we ticked, which are here, let's drag those in. X position to X position, and you've got to make sure you've got this right. X position, and then you've got Y position and Y position. Let's put them in. Okay, we want to set the variable rocket ship to wherever the rocket ship actually is on the X, and do the same for the Y. So when we press the space key, we should find that the get rocket ship Y variable here on the screen should be exactly the same as the rocket ship Y position here. Let's play it. So I'm moving up, I'm moving down. It says it's going to be 1, so when I press space it should also read 1. There we go. That's great. And again down here, it says minus 124. Let's press space, minus 124. This is perfect. It's exactly what we want. But our shark is not yet reading what we have set. So let's go back into the shark object, and then what we want to do is set the position of the shark. So let's find motion and go up to set, which we've got, and set again. Set X, set Y. What do we want to set them to? Well, these are static variables, as in it'll only ever set to these places, and we don't want that. We don't want static variables. We want the very variables we've already decided to use. So go to your variables, get your X rocket ship and put it into X, set X to X, make sure they match, and then put your Y in, set Y to Y. Now where are we going to put these? This is really important. If we put them in forever, we're going to forever set them to these coordinates and then try and move it, which isn't going to work. In other words, you're going to set them, move them, and then pull them back to the same place. This is rubbish. Don't need that. What we want to do is set them once, just like with show. So, when I start the clone, show the shark, set it to X, set it to Y, then move it forever. This should work. So, I'm going to go and tidy up my variables. I'm going to tick and tick, or rather untick, and then I'm going to go to motion and go down. So we go into motion. Now you can see it says rocket ship there, so this is set in the rocket ship. So go back to your rocket ship setting. Remember what OOP is, that's the object we're working with, and then we're going to go down to unchecking X and unchecking Y. There, nice and tidy. When I play it, we should find that the shark flies out from wherever the rocket ship is. So at the top, flies out. Middle, bottom. In fact, we can just keep pressing space and just see it fly up and down. Great. let's have a go at setting our shark to being more of a laser. Let's go into our costumes, and then we're going to just rub out the shark. Don't worry, it's not white. When you release, it'll go back to transparent. Let's take a line, and then we're going to have our outline as whatever we want. Maybe we could turn it to red, maybe keep it as black, it's up to you. And if we come off that, we can then go into drawing our laser. Perhaps that's a little long. So maybe what we could do is undo at the top here, change it to a square, maybe make that whatever colour we want. I'm going to go for red, and then draw a square in instead. I think this gives us some thickness to it, which we might want. If you look very carefully, you can see there's a little crosshair in the middle here. That is the middle of your sprite, and when you drag your sprite around, you can see it draws a little X for you. Match your X up with the middle. This is where the sprite needs to be centered, otherwise it'll be off to the side and look very strange. So now, if we go back into our code, when we press play and we tap, we've actually got little laser beams firing out instead of sharks. This looks really good. But what you might notice is that every time you fire a clone and make a clone, it sticks to the edge of the screen. I'll make this bigger so you can see what I mean. Can you see down here? Every time I fire it, it sticks to the screen. Just down there. So, what we're going to need to do is make sure that we delete it. Perhaps you can work out how to do this. The easiest way to do it is to think about skills we've got before. We need to sense that the laser has touched the edge of the screen. This is sounding very familiar to what the ball does. In fact, if we look at the ball, we can use that to help us. If touching rocket ship, and here we have if touching edge. We want that same logic, but for our lasers. So let's go to our control, and let's get an if out. This is familiar, I've done this before. Let's get a sense out. Touching, not the mouse, but the edge. If touching the edge, and then we need to get delete this clone, put that in, and then tag that into the forever, because we want to forever check. So now, when we go to the big screen again, we press play, we should be able to fire our lasers wherever we are, and they'll disappear as soon as they hit the edge. Look at that. So what we want to do now is make the ball disappear if it is touched by a laser. So how do we do that? Well, we could do all that in our laser script, but I don't think we need to. I think it would be better if we did it in the ball script. We've already got quite a few options going on here, and we've got touching edge, touching rocket ship, but what you'll notice is if we drag a if then statement in, and I move across just so we can see it a bit better, and go to sensing and clip that in, you'll notice on the drop down we've now got shark. Okay, shark isn't right, it's laser, but that's okay, we know what it is. But why don't we go down to our object and change the name from shark to laser. Okay, go back into the ball, and now you'll see it says laser. If touching laser, right, now we need to add this in, but we've got to be very careful we add it. We can't add it inside of this if statement, for example. We don't want to check if it's a laser after checking it's a rocket ship. We want to cycle through. What we want to do is add it at the bottom. Alright? Now, you might decide actually you don't like the look of this. Touching edge, touching rocket ship, then something else, and then touching laser. Well, that's fine. What we can do is just remove these code just for now, and then reorganize them. So, now we have if you touch the edge, go back. If you touch the rocket ship, say bang, take a point off. If you touch a laser, well, we want that same idea again. We want to delete the clone. Okay? You could, if you wanted to, change your sounds. So we've got play sound, and then we can go back in and have the pop sound. Okay? And we'll put that in underneath. Well, we can't put it underneath delete this clone, we've got to put it above delete the clone. So now, go back to the big screen. So, let's test it. There we go, I've got our lasers flying. Let's see if we can make these work then. So we can sense it's touching because we're getting the pop sounds, but we're not destroying. This is fine. It might feel like, oh, it's not working, but the truth is, this is called debugging. Debugging is really important in video gaming. It's something you have to do. It can be frustrating, but it's really important to make sure things work. Now, I wonder if this delete the clone is the thing that isn't really working. I think what we probably actually want to do is not try and delete the clone, that's probably just creating issues, but actually move the clone away. So let's go back to this touching edge script, take out this component and duplicate it. Let's return the component and the one that we changed before and drag this down to where we had our touching laser. If touching laser, play the pop sound and then move back. In other words, as the ball flies across, we're going to hit it to send it back. Now this might feel a little unfair because the player isn't getting any temporary advantage, they're just pushing it back all the time. So what we can do is we can have a wait setting where we make the ball wait a certain amount of time, say a few seconds, before it carries on. And we can do that by going into control. We can use this wait feature here. We can get it to wait after it's popped and then go back. But this might be a little bit strange because it's going to mean that for 1 second the ball's going to stop dead still in space. This spoils the illusion a little bit. So what we want to do is maybe switch this around so that it does go all the way back, but now it'll just be at the edge of the screen and waiting. So why don't we use some visual help? Let's go to our looks and have show and get out hide. Perhaps you can see what we're going to do. Play the pop sound, move back and hide. In fact, we could do one better. We could pop it, hide, go back, wait a second and then show. Okay, I'm going to fire these lasers off. Aha, then it comes back. There we go. Perfect. In fact, this looks like such good fun that what we can do is we can create another sprite that could be our little boss. Alright, so remember our loop? This means we're going to create a new object. So, sprite, why don't we have, let's see what we can do with space. Here's some good options. Now, we've already got the rocket ship, so that doesn't make any sense. And an evil alien planet maybe. Or maybe we could have one of these guys. Why don't we go for Ripley? He can be our new object. There he is. And he's going to be our evil dude. And what we're going to do is use a lot of what's already here for our ball. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is set you a challenge. Can you make our space monster appear and then fly across the screen towards you? You can see he's a bit harder because he's bigger, and there's lots of things you might do. You might make him so he has to be hit twice by the lasers. That would be quite a hard challenge, but you can do it. You just need to give him some health, which you can do in variables. Give him a variable boss health 2. If the laser touches him, take 1 boss health off. If a second laser touches him, take 2 boss health off. The other challenge you've got is, can you make him move? Can you make him float very slowly across the screen towards the player? And if he touches here, on the left side, you could make it quite easily so that you lose the game straight away. And if you shoot him enough, you can give a massive bonus score. Now, you've got all the tools from the tutorial to do that. Yes, you'll have to think yourself. Yes, you'll have to play with it. Yes, you'll make lots of mistakes, but all that's okay. What you need to do is want to take the challenge on and think to yourself, I've got all the skills to make Ripley float across the screen slowly and to shoot him twice to kill him. You've got all those skills, they're all here. I'm just setting you off on a really big challenge. And if you can do it, then you've learned loads. Programming is all about experimenting, all about playing. You are going to make mistakes. I can't say it enough. You are going to make mistakes. But it's whether you can get through the mistakes that will show that you're a good programmer. So have some fun, and next time we'll try a new project.